Well, welcome to Healthy Chats with the Docs with Dr. Brooke Leverone. I'm live from Park City, Utah, and today we're going to be talking about protein powders. So, Doc, one of the things that you'll see protein powders, tons of people are using protein powders and for all different kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
So like a lot of athletes, high school athletes or older, people using them for meal replacements. So can you just give us a high level overview of when a protein powder is a good use of a protein powder, and then we'll dig into what's in a protein powder.
Okay, yeah. So you can use protein powders as a meal replacement, either because and then Deb, I'm sorry, can you turn your computer down a little bit more? Because I'm hearing the echo from me in the computer. There we go. There you go. Okay, perfect. So people will use protein powders as maybe a meal replacement so that they either for weight loss purposes or because it's more convenient. Like I like protein powders in my morning smoothie because it's easy for me. So I'll put my protein and my veggies and fruits and my fiber in a protein smoothie just because that's an easy way for me to start my day. Some people will use protein powders again for weight loss if they're using it as a meal replacement. Other people will use it if they're working out and they need a protein boost after their workout to support muscle recovery, or if they are actually looking to increase muscle gain and they need to increase protein for muscle gain, then they'll use it that way too to help with building up the muscles. Or in the case of, some individuals who may be older and or maybe some individuals have chronic diseases and their difficulty with maintaining healthy weight because of those factors, they'll add the extra protein drinks in to bulk up for those reasons as well too. So yeah, lots of different reasons. It's convenient. It can be a healthy snack. If you don't have something other to choose from, it can help with weight loss if that's your goal. It can also help with muscle mass building and bulking up in that way, or just maintaining weight if you're having difficulty with maintaining weight. So those are kind of the common reasons why people will utilize a protein powder, or convenience. Like I said, I just like mine in the morning because it's convenient.
Yeah, well, so we'll talk a little bit about the ingredients, but let's start with the main ingredient, the protein source, because there's all kinds of protein sources: rice, pea, soy, whey, milk, egg, hemp, brown rice. You even talking about bone broth. So talk to us a little bit about all of the different types of protein and why there are so many, and how do you find the right one for you?
Yeah, so there's several things to consider when choosing which form of protein powder you want to do. One of the reasons would be, why are you using the protein powder? Are you using it for weight loss and meal replacement, or are you using it for muscle building? So that might be one of the things that factors into you just choosing a whey protein versus a plant-based protein, for example. If you're using it for meal replacement, you're wanting to make sure that you have a complete protein source as well too. So you're, looking at the amino acid profile in these ones as well. The other piece is if you have a food sensitivity. Some people can't have whey, or they can't have egg, or some people have digestive issues where they can't have some of the plant fibers. So we're looking again at what are your goals. And depending on what your goals are, you're going to look for the amino acid profile content of these different types of proteins. Whey is going to be slightly different than some of the plant ones. And then you're also looking at what is your system going to be able to tolerate if you have a food sensitivity to an egg or a dairy product, for example. So those are the things that in the big picture of selecting a protein powder that you're going to start thinking about when choosing the right one, which we can obviously dig into in more detail.
So doctor, let's talk about so soy. It started out everybody wanted soy. Now soy doesn't seem to be a good source. More people are going to whey protein. Let's talk specifically about why people have gotten down on soy.
So there's several reasons. One is an inorganic soy source has high amounts of pesticides in it, like glyphosate, which we know has been linked to certain cancers and diseases. So that's one of the problems. The other problem is soy is highly, highly processed. So you lose a lot of the nutritional value through that processing. The other reason is that it contains a lot of what are called phytates, which are commonly referred to as like anti-nutrients. It basically blocks the absorption of certain other nutrients in your system. There's also things in there that can have a negative effect on thyroid hormones. It's also acts as a phytoestrogen, so there can be some estrogenic effects potentially to that as well too. So because of the types of the type of protein that soy provides, these nutrients that are in it, again, can negatively affect your own nutrient level, can affect some of your hormone levels potentially. Highly processed, so you're not getting as much of the good nutrients. And also, if it's non-organic, high levels of pesticide in that particular protein product. So that's not, one of our go-to protein products anymore for those reasons, typically speaking.
The other things is that, so I used to drink a protein powder every morning for breakfast, and then kind of switched it up a little bit. But it was soy free, gluten free, low glycemic, non-GMO, organic, all natural, high fiber, live probiotics, blah 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 blah.
Right.
So
yeah.
About ingredients, and I think the first one I believe that we'd want to talk about related to protein powders would be sugar, right? Because it's got a taste, right?
Right, yeah. So now, in general, I'm going to recommend a protein powder that does not have any added sugar. And it instead is sweetened with something like a monk fruit, maybe a stevia wouldn't be too bad. I like the monk fruit sweetened ones. But because again, like we talked about last week, we don't need any added sugar, right? So that would be added sugar. So we want to choose something like a monk fruit that's not going to have the caloric burden on the system like a sugar would. And then especially if your goal is for weight loss, then you don't want the added sugar for that reason either. You want to stick to the higher protein and lower, carbohydrates, which is where the sugar is gonna happen. So so definitely avoid the ones that have added sugar. You want to look for protein content. I like it to be at least at 18 grams in a protein shake. That's usually a pretty good level. Some are down to 15, but I like, 18 grams of protein or higher in certain ones you're going to get more protein, depending on if you're using like a whey protein or a plant-based protein. But yeah, definitely avoid the sugar. And in general, if your protein shake has more than 10 ingredients, then just put it back. It doesn't need to be that complicated. If there's certainly ingredients that you can't pronounce, put it back. It's just protein powder. It should be pretty straightforward, unless it has like added nutrients, like added probiotics or added enzymes or added, vitamins, then that's a different story. But if you have the other ingredients that has all these other preservatives and phosphates and things like that, then you probably want to put that one back.
Well, let's talk about essential amino acids, because a lot of times you'll see that in a protein powder. What are essential amino acids, and do they affect bioavailability, or is that something separate?
Yeah. Okay, so the essential amino acids are essential because we can't make them in our own body, which means we have to get them from food sources. So that's why they're essential. So when we're looking at a protein powder, so there's a couple different things to think about. Typically we say, yes, you want to get a protein powder that has a complete amino acid profile. Part of the reason is because these amino acids will work synergistically together to build proteins in the body. So that's a good thing. The other reason is if somebody is a vegetarian or vegan, they're usually also looking for a complete protein profile to make sure they're getting all their nutritional needs yet. Now, this isn't always the most important thing when choosing a protein powder, because a lot of times we're still getting a lot of protein from other sources. So we're still getting all of our essential amino acids. Presumably you're not relying on the protein powder to get your essential amino acids. You've got a complete diet in addition. But it is one of the things that people like to have in the protein powders. If you're going to get a protein powder, you might as well make sure it's a complete protein powder. So this is one of the reasons why, people like whey protein, for example, because this is a complete protein powder. The other thing in terms of the essential amino acids is the branch chain amino acids, which are part of the essential amino acids. And these are also really helpful for tissue repair and tissue building and workouts and, recovery from workouts. So the branch chain's also a really, I always like to make sure I have the branch chain amino acids in mind, because they are so helpful in muscle mass building and tissue repair with workouts. So I like to have those after workouts. So commonly, one of the reasons people use protein powders is with their workouts and post workouts. And so they're going to choose a protein powder that has those branch chain amino acids in them specifically as well. Again, part of the essential amino acid profile and that complete amino acid profile. So that's, I would say, looking for the branch chain is a good choice. And then looking at the label where it'll tell you all the amino acids that are in there. A complete amino acid profile will have all the amino acids listed for you, so that you can see that they're all in there. It's not the end all, like it's not going to make or break, I would say, your choice on the protein powder, because there's a lot of other variables to consider, like we talked about in the beginning. But that is a good thing to look for, is that complete amino acid profile, which you can get in a plant-based protein powder. It doesn't have to be the whey, but that's where it, or the egg, which go to naturally have a complete protein profile, because we can, add it to the protein powders that are plant-based to make sure that they still have that complete profile.
To the plant-based, a lot of people who do have protein powders are vegetarian, correct? Because it's hard for them to get different sources of protein. So how do you know that protein, if you're a vegetarian, is bioavailable or you're absorbing it? Is there any way to know that?
That's a really good question. You want to look for the, if the more complete the profile, the more bioavailable it's going to be, basically. And that's, again, because the amino acids work synergistically in your system to create structures. So, if you're having, less of some of that profile, then you're not going to be able to effectively make some of the protein structures as well, because if you're missing one of those essentials, right? So, the bioavailability, which we talked about in a few, I don't know where that was. We talked about bioavailability of products a while back, but one of the things that comes from the bioavailability is not just how well you absorb it in your system, but how well it's being utilized by your system. And the utilization comes into play when you have that complete profile. So if all the amino acids are together, then you're going to have better utilization of those proteins in the system. So, for the vegetarians who are using protein powders to supplement some of their protein, definitely looking for a complete amino acid profile is a good choice.
The other is, can you have too much protein? I read somewhere that if you have too much protein, it can damage your kidneys.
Right. So that's not true, but it has to be taken, that statement has to be taken in context. If you're eating a high protein diet and you're not eating any vegetables, yes, this is going to be very bad for you. But most of the time we find that a lot of people don't get enough protein. And it's surprising how much protein, if you were to track on your FitnessPal or some other app, how much protein you ate during the day, it's surprisingly hard to get up to how much protein you need. So my trainer keeps telling me to eat a lot more protein. And I mean, there's only so many pieces of chicken I can eat during a day. And the only time I've ever actually met my protein goal was when I supplemented with protein shakes twice a day, in addition to my protein meals throughout the day. So it's surprising how much protein we actually need to eat to get the protein that we need on a day-to-day basis. And this is a total side note. This is one of the downfalls in difficulty with weight loss, is that we're not getting enough, for women who are struggling with it, it's not getting enough protein is a lot of times part of the problem. That's a side note, another conversation. But it is hard to get enough protein. So when we're eating a lot of protein, like I mentioned, if you're also eating a complete diet that also has lots of veggies and healthy fats in it, then you're having lots of antioxidants and enzymes, and it's all balancing out. So you're not, yes, you can damage your kidneys if you're eating a super crazy amount of protein. But that's usually in the cases with people are having an unbalanced diet and they're just eating tons and tons and tons of proteins and they're not balancing it with vegetables. And there's other factors usually involved there that are putting stress on the kidneys. And then certainly somebody who has kidney disease, they do need to eat a low protein diet because it takes some of the pressure off the kidney. So that would be, an exception to all of this, in a different sort of situation. But, supplementing with a couple extra protein shakes a day typically is not a problem for those of us who have a balanced diet and just need to boost up our protein levels to get to what we actually need.
Well, we're not talking about keto diet today, but
Right,
keto diet
yeah.
is primarily protein. And so
Well, keto diet is primarily fat.
fats. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so protein shakes and keto probably don't go hand in hand unless, because there's so many carbohydrates, right? In a lot of times in protein powders.
Well, not necessarily. There's a lot of protein powders that have low carbohydrates, which is great. So those are the ones that I typically recommend and look for, is the ones with the lower carbohydrates, the lower sugar content. You just have to, again, it depends on what your goals are, but you can find protein powders out there that are going to be lower in the carbohydrates depending on what they're made out of.
Well, believe it or not, we've gone a little over again.
We do, but we do have a question.
Okay, great.
They are asking, is it okay to have different types of protein in a day, like using collagen in coffee and then protein shake afterward? Yeah. That's great. And actually, so another side note. So I know we're running out of time. God, that went really fast. So if your goal is for work, and I'm going to answer that question in a longer version, so hold with me. If your goal is weight loss, then you don't necessarily have to worry too much about the complete amino acid profile. You want a low carbohydrate protein powder, and you can use that as a meal replacement and as a snack. If your goal is muscle building and gains in the gym, or you're trying to maintain mass because for other, aging and disease reasons, you can't maintain weight, then you're going to want to make sure that you have that complete protein powder. Typically, whey protein's very popular for this, but if you have a dairy sensitivity, you're going to have to choose another protein powder. The pea rice blends are pretty good. They do add in the essential amino acids, which can help give you that complete protein powder that you're then going to take after your workouts to help with muscle recovery and muscle gains after a workout. And yes, you can mix up the different types of proteins during the day. Collagen is a great protein to add on. It is not a complete protein. It is not a high amount of protein, so it's not going to be good for on its own as a meal replacement like we're talking about right now. But it's very synergistic with the rest of the protein. So you can mix it in your protein powder or have a protein powder that has added collagen. And that actually provides a lot of synergy with the amino acids and gut healing and tissue repair. So collagen's a great thing to add. Or you can have it, like you were asking online, the collagen in the coffee, which is popular with that bulletproof trend. Totally fine to mix that up and do that in there as well. So yeah, you can totally have those different types. And I love collagen. Again, it's not a standalone, it's an add-on. So you can't, get what you need from collagen by itself. There's also bone broth protein that I like as well too, that has a really good nutritious profile. You're avoiding the allergens like dairy and eggs. Some people have a hard time digesting pea and rice proteins. There can be some issues with that as well too, with those pea and rice proteins that also can have some phytates in them. And leptins in them that can disrupt digestion. And so the bone broth protein is a newer version of protein powders that are available that I also really like. There is some controversy over some of them and possible lead content. So that's still something that's being sort of figured out, but you might want to do some research on that on your own. And if you're interested in that form of protein as well too. And then in terms of how much protein you should be getting, most people should be getting between 0.8 and 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight daily. More if you're in the gym on a regular basis lifting heavy weights. That's going to be more like a 1.2 to 1.3 pounds or grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. For example, one egg is 7 grams. Chicken breast is about 20, 25 grams. And so if you're, you know, I think my protein intake's like supposed to be, my trainer, I swear to God, wants me like over 100 grams of protein a day, which I just cannot get in. But most of us should be getting, you know, like 60 to 90 grams of protein a day, which is quite a lot. So that's just a side note to help you with your protein selection and using them as well too. So, okay, I'm done. I know we're over.
Great in that it is so confusing. You go to the store, there's, you know, 20 different brands.
Yeah.
You're not quite
Oh,
sure what to do. Your
always
friends say,
choose.
oh no,
Yeah.
you have to have whey. I mean, you know,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, look for the complete amino acid profile, low carbohydrates, look for organic, especially if you are going to use a whey protein, please, 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 it has to be organic. Animals have the highest concentration of pesticides if they are non-organic. So choose an organic if you're doing whey. You should choose organic when you're doing the plant-based as well too, because those plant crops have high pesticides. But specifically if you're also doing animal protein, and, you know, minimal ingredients, it doesn't need to have a lot of stuff. It could just be you know, pure protein.
Well, thanks, Doc. Sometimes it feels like there's so much to know.
I know there's so much. We pick these topics thinking that they're going to be quick and simple, and then always goes over.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'll
Okay.
see you back in San Diego next week for Healthy
Yay.
Choices.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Take care.
All right.
Have a
Take
great
care.
one.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.